When I saw how the director chose to set up this scene in the Hurt Locker, it got under my skin enough. I decided, as part of some pseudo healing process, to purge myself of the things that really bug me. Essentially, the death of Fiennes' character is horseshit, or it's just bogus, and we can seemingly only explain it away because of some kind of ignorance or laziness on the part of the director and those responsible for the movie or this story. They took the lazy way out, and then to add insult to injury, they fell back on the rah, 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 USA, USA mindset, where, of course, the American soldiers can't be killed, but someone other than Iraqis or insurgents of unknown ethnicity need to be killed. So let's have it be some Brits. The irony is our CIA or our Delta Force type units were influenced by MI6 and the SBS or SAS, even going back to the OSS during World War II. And yet it's seemingly Brit military contractors on what appears to be a snatch and grab of high value target, meaning they are probably former or current SAS, SBS operators. And yet they who originated much of these kinds of operations going back decades and really centuries get wasted. It's disgusting. And yeah, sure, it's just a stupid movie, but a movie that was lauded, and yet this scene made it past the cutting room floor. I wonder if Fiennes even cared, or if it was just a paycheck for him. His gravitas certainly carried the scene, and his characters deserved better. Seeing how the Brits carried on an overt and covert war with Russia around the end of the 19th century, i.e. the Great Game, where that era's version of MI6 and the KGB honed their skill sets, who in turn most likely owe gratitude or an homage to Venetian diplomacy and intelligence gathering in the Middle Ages. It's evident the Brits have a lot of experience, whereas the Americans are the new players. First, the setup of the scene. Okay, so it's not unusual for EOD three-man teams to operate or move with limited external support. We can wonder why they are seemingly miles from other U.S. units, but it is plausible. In turn, we may assume Fiennes' team of private contractors cannot have been broken down for long since, seemingly, 1, they would have gotten assistance from someone else, 2, their support would have helped them, or 3, they would have been ambushed already. General thoughts regarding the EOD team. Okay, so 1, we have an E5 and an E7 with a Ranger tab. In general, they received about 43 weeks of initial training. And yes, for EOD fanboys, this can be in flux where it decreases or increases. Let's say for Sanborn, the E5, with an average promotion rate, he's been in service for 4, 5, or 6 years. Let's say for James, the E7, with an average promotion rate, he's been in service for 10 to 13 years. Again, maybe they got promoted quicker, but what I'm trying to establish is a general time frame in service to establish a baseline of sorts relating to the additional training they may have received. Something like long-range shooting, which is pertinent to this scene. Okay, 2. James has a Ranger tab, so he completed Ranger School. Okay, that's sort of, he got training in small unit tactics, patrolling at the squad and platoon level. Did James transfer into EOD? In other words, he has prior experience from another combat-related MOS? Okay, why doesn't James take the shots with the Barrett? This is perplexing. Did Sanborn attend sniper school and that's why he takes the shot? Is it really plausible for an E5 who should be focused on EOD methods and techniques to attend anything more than a cursory class on long-range shooting for him to be taking the shots later with the Barrett? I'd say at best, Sanborn is a squad-designated marksman, and this is being generous. Squad-designated marksman being, let's say, within a squad or within a platoon, the 2 or 3 or 4 soldiers that show aptitude for being able to shoot at greater distance or with greater accuracy, who then can get additional training, who have access to something like the M24 rifle. Keep in mind, by completing Ranger School, James is Ranger qualified, but not actually a Ranger or a member of a Ranger regiment. The latter would come from being assigned to a Ranger regiment and then completing the Ranger Assessment and Selection Program, RASP, within a short period of time. Keep in mind, even soldiers who do this are generally required to also complete said Ranger School. But it's important to note the difference where all sorts of soldiers can attend Ranger School and earn the Ranger tab to then return to their non-Ranger regiment units. Example, James as an EOD soldier. Also note that just because a soldier completes Ranger School and or RASP, they must maintain their edge or else they'll get bounced from a Ranger regiment. So just completing RASP is no guarantee a soldier will remain and develop as a Ranger in a Ranger regiment. It may not always be the case, but in researching, I found that when Rangers in a Ranger regiment are promoted, they must attend and complete a RASP-type course to prove or reprove their capabilities and show they still have that edge and deserve the respect that goes with their promotion and new leadership role. Keep this in mind when you think of a captain or a major being promoted when they are in their early or late 30s, having to prove themselves in that type of RASP-like course. Keep this in mind regarding Fiennes' character, who, if we go off his real age, is in his early 40s, based on Fiennes being born in 62, and this movie being based around 04. General thoughts regarding Fiennes' team. 1. If they are SAS or SBS, Special Reconnaissance, shouldn't they be in uniform? In other words, international law regarding espionage. And less consideration for Iraqi non-compliance and honoring their legal protection allows them to operate without uniform. If SAS or SBS, then they have a much higher level of training and experience in combat and long-range shooting compared to Sanborn and James. 2. If they are private contractors based on the mission to find and capture these high-value targets, means or would be reasonable that they are ex-military and highly trained. Fiennes is British, as is his team generally, but may he be or may they be paramilitary operations officers or part of the CIA Special Activities Division or the MI6 equivalent? And yet the movie is American-centric and the United States has the larger defense budget, but this crew are British-centric? Is the movie's director trying to make a statement against British paramilitary activities and foreign policy? Or was it just a random choice to give a Brit actor a cameo? Okay, Fiennes was born in 62. So as noted, based on the setting of the movie being around 04, then he's 42 years old. In context, his character joined the military around 82, where if he did his 20 means he retired and went into private security work around 02 or earlier as a second career, or is just doing this for quick cash. Or something like he has at least 8 to 10 years in service with another 5 to 10 years as a military contractor. The potential experience of Fiennes and his team is implied based on the mission to find and capture high-value targets. In other words, this wouldn't be given to an inexperienced group. Some plausible backgrounds would include things like 1. Royal Marines initial training is 32 weeks. Or British Army para initial training is about 28 weeks. And keep in mind how this can flux, but would also include additional specialized training and things like sniper school, mountain warfare school, or time in a Pathfinder platoon in an air assault or para brigade, and would include endurance tasks such as the high walk or fan dance, 15-mile and 4-hour with load-bearing equipment advanced to battle march/hike in Wales, or They are current or former members of the SAS or SPS, which requires an even higher level of training, but generally their training even as para or Royal Marines would include endurance, discipline, character, strength, marksmanship, adaptability, tactics, ambush and patrolling, navigation, reconnaissance, explosives and communication in all sorts of terrain and climates. The EOD team makes contact with Fiennes' team, and once they establish the latter's identity, they begin to give them assistance. And at this point, one of Fiennes' team members is shot in the back. Okay, now let's begin to break this all down. The Iraqi sniper's first shot hits one of Fiennes' men square in the back, essentially. Did the Iraqi have dope or data on previous engagement on that particular area or shot? Fiennes' men were broken down long enough for ad hoc insurgents to plan an ambush. Okay, consider how the mortar fire was relatively accurate but limited to just 4 salvos. Did they have limited ammo, or were they concerned if they fired more than a few salvos, they'd get caught by a response, like a quick reaction force, or they'd be spotted by helicopters? Okay, a side note. Where did the mortar crew go? They fired from behind the building, so out of sight, and exited the same way, so they were already leaving by the time Fiennes and his spotter assessed the situation? Or were they the 2 guys on the roof of said building? Was it a 60mm mortar? They landed sort of in a fire for effect salvo or salvos in a short period, implying they had range or dope on Fiennes' team, which matches how or why the Iraqi sniper was able to hit Fiennes' man almost square in the back with the first shot. Okay, I guess so. Why not use the last remaining mortar rounds to target with greater precision to hit Fiennes' team and the American EOD team in the defilade? But this is more of a judgment call. In other words, so these mortar rounds all land in sequence. 1, 2, 3. These salvos come in. They don't cause any casualties or injuries. Okay, maybe that's lucky. But again, it seems like why not hold back a few rounds to sort of lead the shots right into that defilade, and you can really fuck Fiennes and the Americans up. But again, kind of a judgment call. We'll let that be put aside. The mortar crew may have been further back over the ridge and separate from the insurgents or Iraqis in the building, possibly causing the lack of fire control. So once they were zeroed enough, they went with the noted few volleys before waiting for instructions or adjustments in their fire before they left, or then they just decided to leave. Okay, speculation. To elaborate a bit more before we get into the minutiae of the shooting. Okay, if these people are not part of the mortar crew, who are these other 2 or 3 Iraqis on the roof of the building, and then on the ground to the right of the building that Sanborn shoots? Why are they there, since they don't have a weapon capable of shooting long range to hit Fiennes' team or the EOD team? Are they fire support in case they are attacked directly, like somebody comes to assault them in that building? Still kind of stupid, because what are 2 or 3 guys going to do to hold down a building like that that's totally exposed out in the middle of the desert over this ridge from the nearest little town? Are they the noted fire control or forward observers for the mortar crew? Regardless, it's shabby cover and concealment to be exposed on the roof of the building like they are, or if a second sniper, they aren't really shooting. So what exactly are they doing? So we have the first opening shot from the Iraqi sniper that hits one of Fiennes' men while walking almost square in the back. Okay, boom, 1 down, 1 shot, 1 kill. Fiennes' team and the Americans fall back into a defilade, except for one of Fiennes' men who gets behind the 50 cal on the Americans' Humvee, where they begin to lay down suppressive fire. We don't know it at the time, but based on what will entail in this scene, they're wasting ammo and essentially being ineffective, since the Iraqis or the insurgents are unseen. He, along with the rest of Fiennes' men and the American EOD team, perform essentially a mad minute, where it's plausible they are just reacting and laying down suppressive fire to try and take control of the tactical situation. Now, with just the Iraqi's second shot, he hits the guy on the 50 cal in the Humvee. Now put this into perspective, because it's important as we progress into the analysis of this ambush. Fiennes' man on the 50 is not fully protected, but at the same time, they are only partially exposed. And yet they get hit in the neck versus the round deflecting off the turret or the vehicle. This frickin' Iraqi is 2 for 2. He hits a walking dude almost square in the back, and then he hits another guy basically where only his upper body is partially exposed, right in the neck. Okay, this guy is like a frickin' sniper, like a badass sniper or whatever. Okay. So now, this strongly implies the sniper shooter has serious dope or data on previous engagement to account for the range, the angle, and wind, and to hit 2 for 2. What's weird, though, is the only reason why Fiennes and his team are there is because of a vehicle breakdown. So why would an Iraqi sniper take the time to get the data on previous engagement for this particular setup kind of shot? Did they plan on using that building to sit and hide and wait for coalition or Anglo-American forces to pass by? Note, it looks like the Iraqi is using a Dragunov rifle, which has a noted range of 800 meters. Yet later, James S. Spotter says the distance is 850 meters. Okay, wait a second. So not just one, but 2 miracle shots at the maximum effective range of this rifle? Okay. So this Iraqi can hit 2 targets with 2 shots and then nothing. Nada. And if you're making only lucky shots, why stick around? Why not just bail? You freaking get 2 kills with 2 shots? Okay, cool. Now get the fuck out of there. Okay, regarding the Dragunov, it is often assigned to the squad's designated marksman, i.e. is not a true sniper, but rather an infantryman who shows aptitude and has gotten to attend maybe something like an actual sniper school, or at least has gotten additional training in longer range shooting. But in theory, if a true permanent sniper as their role, why aren't they using a better rifle with a longer effective range? As an idea, the M24 rifle has an 800 meter range. In other words, it's similar to the Dragunov, with record shots of 1,000 meters, or a maximum of 1,500 meters with, and I don't know how to pronounce this word, Lapua Magnum cartridges. So it is seemingly possible. Yet, again, we'll see they go from 2 shots and 2 kills to jack shit. So if the narrative is that this Iraqi sniper is like what? He's the best sniper in all of the Iraqi army. He was trained by the Americans. He was trained by the Russians. He was trained by the British. Okay, fine. Yet why doesn't he have a better rifle then? 1. 2, okay, he's making shots, record shots with the Dragunov. But again, so he's going to go from being 2 for 2, 2 shots, 2 kills, to then basically jack shit. And again, why not leave then? Shoot and scoot. Get the fuck out. Okay. A general stat notes that the Soviets found a squad-designated marksman with a Dragunov made 50% hit probability on a standing man target at 800 meters, where this shooter is making 100% hits on a walking standing man target and a partially exposed man at 850 plus meters. We'll compare this to Sanborn, an EOD specialist picking up a rifle that is not zeroed or adjusted to him and his accuracy. And yet, what? So what? Is Sanborn a previously unexplained or acknowledged squad-designated marksman? Fiennes and one of his men grab a Barrett 50 cal rifle and join the others in the defilade position. Some assumptions we can make. Fiennes, being a contractor or SAS SBS operator in charge of a mission to locate and capture high-value targets, in theory has a sufficient budget to choose the weapons he prefers. Regardless, even if the Barrett was forced on him, he wouldn't bring it on this mission while also choosing it for himself to take the first shots unless he was familiar with this rifle. In other words, it means that logically he's fired many shots through that Barrett at a range or in combat. Here's where I question the research of the filmmakers, because again, why is a Brit seemingly working for U.S. command, where even if he is under the command of Britain, he's been loaned out to take orders from the American command, since the overall command and combat forces in Iraq were American? And what I'm leading up to is, why wouldn't a Brit like Fiennes have taken their long-range rifle of choice, the L115A3 AWM by Accuracy International? But maybe he's a Brit that just happens to prefer the Barrett, or maybe he works for an American private military contractor and they told him to use the Barrett. But regardless, his level of training, implied by the things I've noted already, along with him accepting and choosing to bring this rifle on the mission, along with him taking the first shots with it, implies he's familiar with the Barrett, and it's been adjusted or zeroed to him. His facial musculature, bone structure, and eye to cheekbone sight alignment. Situation to this point. Okay, Fiennes and his men are in the defilade along with the EOD team of James, Sanborn, and Eldridge. Fiennes and his spotter move to the edge of the defilade and note or see movement in the building. Fiennes takes one shot and misses. Soon after, the Iraqi shooter, with their third shot from a window, unsupported, hits Fiennes. Okay, now this is becoming a what the fuck kind of bullshit. Now they're 3 for 3. The Iraqi is now 3 for 3. Why wasn't Fiennes firing prone, since by standing at the edge of the defilade, he exposed more of his upper body? Okay, yet consider, and you can go look this up, consider documentary footage of a firefight between Taliban and Northern Alliance soldiers in Afghanistan, which had SBS and Special Forces or CIA Special Activities Division, shows special ops types standing to fire a machine gun that looks like an FN MAG from behind a low wall, exposing their body from the waist up. And they were fine. This was in or near, again, pronunciation, Mazar-e-Sharif. So in other words, these dudes in real life will stand up and shoot and then squat down, and they didn't get killed or whatever. But again, though, it's still, Fiennes is exposing his body from the way he was standing there at the edge of this defilade. But in real life, it happens, and even more so. The Barrett creates a large signature upon firing. So this would help the Iraqi sniper or shooter in locating Fiennes' position. Yet in turn, the Iraqi is exposed firing from the window of the building, which is a huge no-no, since a true sniper would want to position themselves well inside the building for true concealment, where the shadows inside a room hide movement or anything like the scope or the rifle or the clothing or any kind of shift in patterns that would give away a sniper. So this Iraqi is now 3 for 3, 3 shots, 3 kills, and yet they are shooting from a very amateurish position where even some of their rifle's barrel is exposed outside the window frame. Keep in mind, the Iraqi using what looks like a Dragunov is now 3 for 3 at basically the rifle's maximum effective range from an unsupported amateurish position, and yet to be generous, it's plausible they have dope on this area and from this particular position, and yet the only reason they can ambush Fiennes and his team is because of their breakdown, unless, as noted, they did prior recon and planning to ambush from this site. And yet again, it's basically just a small building, which means the best bet is a quick ad hoc style ambush and then get the frickin' hell out of there before any opposition identifies that location and counterattacks, or calls in an airstrike, or hits that building with heavier weapons like a 50 cal. I mean, just think about it. So you're in this building, you ambush, they frickin' call in an airstrike, or they frickin' just attack you and you're pinned down in this building, or they just frickin' rake it with 20 millimeters. I mean, it's kind of stupid. Unless you do this, 2 shots, 2 kills, even 3 shots, 3 kills, and then get the hell out of there. At least it's somewhat plausible that Fiennes' a shot misses since he doesn't have dope, and will say it's the expediency of filmmaking for an amateur audience, or just the filmmaker's ignorance why they didn't include some generic dialogue between Fiennes and his spotter regarding not only distance, but wind and scope adjustments. This is even more glaring when the director chooses to have James and Sanborn monologue or take long pauses where it's basically dead space or dead air that could have been filled with more tension and the noted dialogue to adjust the scope to land shots on target. In this scene, you have all this action, and then later, when the ammo's being cleaned, when James and Sanborn are there outside the defilade, it's like 2 or 3 minutes of film time, of actual airtime in the movie with nothing going on but James and Sanborn just laying there. So it's like, oh, let's not include dialogue that makes this more realistic, but then let's just have these 2 guys laying there for 2 or 3 minutes. Okay, whatever. This director of this movie is bullshit. This director of this movie is fucking shit. Okay, whatever. I don't care anymore. Looking closer at the Barrett, and it doesn't look like it has an ACI near the scope or an angle cosine indicator. So did the spotter with the rangefinder give Fiennes the straight line and flat line distance? Because they're shooting slightly uphill and the target is on the 2nd floor. And at that distance, 850 plus meters, wouldn't they need to adjust for the height of the target? So the ACI will sit next to the scope and you can look at it and see the angle cosine indicator, how, it's tilting to show the angle, kind of like a leveler. But maybe the rangefinder had it. And again, for the expediency of filmmaking, they didn't add that into the dialogue. The insurgents, or the target, are on the building's 2nd floor. So did the spotter and Fiennes use the horizon and fist the incline to estimate the angle and adjust their scope? Since at longer ranges, when shooting up or downhill, one needs to adjust for the straight line and flat line distance. Okay, so maybe they didn't need an ACI. They just used their fist and they just fisted the horizon. Maybe that's it. But again, they don't show you this. Still, 1 shot, it's a miss. Insert. We get the same problem or lack of details in the movie Hell or High Water when Jeff Bridges' character does like Sanborn will and uses another person's rifle with their scope adjustments, and while out of breath and heaving, makes a headshot on a criminal at long range. Go check out Hell or High Water. It's the same kind of thing. Okay, here's the joke, and I'll point the finger at myself. It's sort of like the BBC version of Top Gear when Jeremy Clarkson and Hammond filmed their pretend car chase, And Clarkson puts in a scene about having to hold down the traction control button for 10 seconds in the Jaguar. In other words, you can't peel out and make the tires spin in the Jaguar unless you turn the traction control off. So yes, it's pedantic, but in a war movie, things could have been done better. And mainly, I'm mostly pissed off about how Fiennes' character goes down in such weak-ass manner. Fiennes' character is dead, and Sanborn takes up the Barrett with James the E7, who has a Ranger tab as a spotter. Okay, again, maybe Sanborn off-screen is the better marksman. Again, why isn't the E7 with the Ranger tab taking the shot rather than an E5, EOD specialist? Okay, whatever. Maybe somehow Sanborn, because he's been in country longer in this story, he's the proven better marksman. And we get the range, 850 meters. The sequence then goes as follows. Sanborn, first shot miss. Misses to the far left? Huh? This looks like bad editing. The continuity is fucked because the baddies are on the right side of the building. So how the hell is Sanborn shooting and missing 20 feet to the left? Now there's this long ass delay to clear the jam and clean the ammo. It's 3 minutes of scene time. 3 minutes. And during all this time, 3 minutes, there's no fire from the Iraqi. So remember, the Iraqi has fired once, hits a dude walking almost square in the back. Fires twice, hits a dude partially exposed on a Humvee in the fucking neck. 3, hits a dude in the chest, partially exposed in the defilade. He's 3 for 3, all in like a minute or so. And then nothing, 3 minutes. Sanborn and frickin' James are laying there for 3 minutes and there's shit. There's nothing going on. This is stupid setup of even a frickin' film. Fucking lay fire in there, Iraqis. Shoot more mortar rounds in there, or why haven't you left by now? Yes, Sanborn and James are prone, whereas Fiennes exposed more of his upper body. But their position is basically in the same space, the same area, and they haven't moved. And note, the Barrett has a large signature upon firing. And now the Iraqi sniper has Fiennes' shot from the Barrett and then Sanborn's shot from the Barrett to get the 2 signatures from the Barrett firing. Now they should have a very good idea where they are. And yet nothing? Weak, very weak as shit. And why not just bail? If they don't feel like they can hit Sanborn or James while they're laying there in the frickin' desert like 5 feet in front of this defilade. Now go watch a video or two about US or British sniper school where the candidates must complete a stalk approach from a crawl or crouch, whatever, where when they establish a FFP or find firing position, the instructors try to spot them on their approach or once they fire, where the instructors begin to narrow from a wide search, from the sound of the shot, etc., to see if they can spot the candidate. Trained snipers can spot candidates in foliage, in fields of grass and brush and heather, or from the way shadows are affected when candidates fire from within buildings with multiple windows and floors. And yet this Iraqi sniper already hit Fiennes' man while walking, then hits with the next shot Fiennes' man in the Humvee, and then hits Fiennes in the defilade. And yet now, even with Sanborn and James in almost the same position as Fiennes, and with 2 shot signatures from the Barrett to go off to narrow down this search and shots, he suddenly doesn't or can't fire, which in turn leads to no close calls or shots landing near Sanborn or James. So what? This Iraqi suddenly had a jam too, or they got dust in their eyes? This whole interplay is just bad. In videos of sniper school, the instructors or candidates talk about counterfire against opposing snipers. And a perfectly plausible scenario based on these stock approaches and shots would be where a candidate sniper is prone or crouched, where the instructor or the opposing sniper is just above ground, like they're sitting on the back of a truck, or they're up on a short stand 3-4 feet off the ground. Or in this case, on the second floor of a building, where to effectively return accurate counter sniper fire would mean a sniper is able to put rounds on a human body that is prone or crawling or crouching behind a tree or under movement to cover of some kind, like a ditch or a wall or logs. In other words, if you aren't actually a sniper, you already know people might be crouching down or laying down. So you would know what to look for. You would know how to look for a human shadow or shape lying on the ground or in a bush or on the edge of a bush. And then you would fucking pump 1, 2, 3 rounds into that area, knowing you could nail one into the person's body or skip shot into them to at least make them react, to fucking get behind better cover or crawl out of that zone ASAP before then mortar rounds or something get called in on your position. And you can see in these videos of like sniper school where when these candidates are approaching, the instructors see them. Or like I said, even when the building is 5 floors and has 4 windows on each floor, so that's 20 windows, these instructors can find the candidates and identify exactly which window they are firing from within a few minutes. And yet this Iraqi is basically shooting from one of 2 places. So it's terrible concealment, or it's a terrible choice for a firing position. But remember, they were 3 for 3. In other words, this Iraqi sniper should be able to return fire knowing or seeing Sanborn's position and begin to put rounds on top of him, either hitting him or forcing him to lay there while dealing with the ammo jam and praying for protection, or to quickly get back into the defilade, which is the most plausible. And yet, based off the Iraqi sniper hitting 3 targets with just 3 shots, it's quite likely Sanborn or James would be hit within moments or seconds, regardless. And yet, nope. Instead, we get this interlude of 3 minutes of screen time and nothing. And meanwhile, there's the dead body of Fiennes' character, who's likely a current or ex-SAS or SBS soldier, or at least a senior NCO or something like a major, to be in command of this small team that was tasked to find and capture the high-value targets. It's crappy, it's an unrealistic death, and it's undeserving of Fiennes' character and Fiennes as the actor. The whole design of this scene is okay, but it's very poorly developed. It's just way too rah, or blind patriotism, or maybe it's just ignorance on the part of the director and even the actors who probably don't care a whit. After the noted pause, Sanborn takes a second shot and hits an insurgent or Iraqi crawling on the roof, just like that. No scope adjustment, no adjustment from Fiennes' alignment to his own, and with the second shot, he hits a person crawling on the roof. And remember, his first shot hit the left side of the building. Remember, whether Fiennes' character liked the Barrett over another rifle, he brought it on the mission, which means logically he fired dozens and dozens of rounds using it on a range to sight in the scope based on his preferences and physiology. And it's implied at least the Barrett was set up for Fiennes' character because he takes the shot rather than assign the shooting to one of his men. Yet Sanborn, with holdover shots, has a 50% accuracy on a new weapon to him with no ACI, no dope, or 0. Where are the adjustments for wind and the angle? James only gives him the range. Sanborn takes a third shot, which barely misses some random Iraqi on the ground to the right of the building. This makes no sense. Why is the Iraqi there? Why is he there where he's totally exposed? If he's running away, why is he exposing himself to Sanborn's fire? Why not run away from the back of the building and or stay low and use the terrain to hide? He's carrying what looks like an AK-47, which cannot hit the Americans or Fiennes' remaining team members. He's 850 meters away. What is he doing? That's already stupid. But then how about Sanborn's shot? Whoa! This guy is cooking with Crisco. What is he doing in EOD? This guy's a badass, man. He almost hits this guy at a similar range as the shot to the guy on the roof, but at a completely different angle and a slightly different range and with the wind blowing, and he barely misses? Whoa! An EOD E5 is shooting better than some ex-SBS, SAS, or Para, or Air Assault, or Royal Marine in charge of a team trusted to find and capture high-value targets? Okay, yeah, sure. With Sanborn's fourth shot, he hits the exposed Iraqi on the move. Yeah! Hoo-hoo! Oh, yeah, Meanwhile, he's in the same position, and the sniper in the building is still not shooting at him. This is weak sauce. This is just horse shit. They already hit 3 different men with 3 shots in 3 positions. I'm talking about the Iraqi. They hit 3 different dudes, 3 shots, 3 different positions. Sanborn is in the same general location as their last third shot. Remember, they killed Fiennes with their third shot, the Iraqi sniper or the insurgent. And Sanborn is only like 10 feet away. And the dude was shooting unsupported while standing, and he did all this? And the Barrett has this large signature after firing, and Sanborn's fired it 2, 3, 4 times, and still nothing. Woo! You! Oh yeah, what a good movie. Woo! What a good scene. Finally, after all this, the Iraqi sniper fires their 4th shot and misses. Uh-oh, they lost their mojo. Sanborn takes his 5th shot and miss. Guess the director figured, well, better add a little mystery or some drama here. And then his 6th shot and hits the Iraqi. But wait, dude is now in the other window on the left side of the building? Huh? Maybe this is that missing continuity or bad editing from Sanborn's earlier shot. And yet again, Sanborn had the same range and angle, but now he's making another holdover shot with no adjustments on a guy 20, 30 feet to the left. But remember, Sanborn, he nailed the dude on the run. Hey, what? This shot's nothing, man. This is a piece of cake. Meanwhile, the Iraqi sniper can't hit the side of a barn. And keep in mind, the Iraqis started this ambush. It was their plan, their call, meaning the shots, the adjustments, the location was chosen by them. And even if it's an ad hoc ambush, it was still put into motion by the Iraqis. And it started so well. 3 shots, 3 kills, baby, and then nothing. So why not leave? Why stay in this bad position in the building where the element of surprise or concealment is lost? It's a freaking 2-story building with a couple windows. Not exactly a mystery, or doesn't provide many options for a hide site. So why not shoot a few times and then bail? The mortar crew already bailed, unless they're the idiots crawling around on the roof, or the guy running to the right of the building. This is freaking insulting to not only Fiennes' character, who deserved better, but the Iraqi military as well. Seeing how the Iraqi sniper exposed himself by sticking the barrel of his rifle partially out the window rather than at least shoot from within the building to utilize the shadows, I guess he was a pure amateur. And yet he landed 3 shots on 3 different targets without a miss? So circles back on why this has annoyed me for years. Bad direction, poor development, poor logic, or just a fucking psyop, crap war movie that's basically propaganda. If anything, why isn't the Iraqi sniper in a ground hide site, dug down a few feet where he can lay in it and then put sand colored tarp with rocks and sand and shit around his hide site, or to use sand colored netting over the front, where only a professional sniper could spot his firing position, and only if he fired more than a few times and then just laid low. Come on, at 850, 900 meters, if a dude was wearing sand-colored camo, was dug down into the sand with rocks and shit around him and like a sand-colored tarp and netting over him, and he only fired 2 or 3 times, how would you find that fucking guy? And then just you fucking chill and then wait for everybody to leave, or you just low crawl out of that zone and then get up and run over that little ridge behind the building. Really, the ambush could have been perfectly executed if they just left, and if the mortar salvos, which landed pretty close, had caused injuries. They could have inflicted 1, 2, 3 KIAs and 1 or 2 WIAs and maybe another WIA with a couple accurate shots on Sanborn or James, and then just bailed. It could have been perfect. They could have been back in their little village, talking shit, drinking whatever Iraqis drink, whatever, their little sweet tea, their Turkish kind of tea with some honey in it or sugar or something, their boobly soda, whatever. And they could have been like, yeah, baby, we fucking sniped and took out 2 or 3 of those effers, and then we dropped in some mortar rounds and we saw a couple go down. Yeah, and then we're out of there, baby. Successful. 2 or 3 KIAs, 1 or 2 WIAs. That's a good day, man. There was no quick reaction team coming to counterattack the Iraqis. So there wasn't a major need for a perfect exfiltration or egress from that area. Nor was there a coalition or American helicopter that arrived that would make said egress harder. Regardless, the building was nothing more than a short-term solution because it was isolated and wouldn't provide much help against the concealment or heavy return or some kind of a direct attack. So regardless, you have to assume that the Americans would have a quick reaction team to come and nail your ass, or that there would be a helicopter nearby that could come and fire some rockets into that building or nail you when you're trying to exfiltrate that area. Keep in mind, the swirling sand to indicate windy conditions, which would affect the shots, and yet Sanborn with no adjustments on a weapon zeroed to another person is just cooking. James looks like a punk, by the way. Hey, James, you're an E7, dude. Dude, you got a Ranger tab. And you're delegating the shooting? But meanwhile, hey, he's this crazy guy going off on his own to find that Iraqi child. Or he goes and he deals with explosives on his own. He's the one like pushing the limits of their operating procedures. But whatever. Hey, yeah, E7 with the Ranger tab. But I'm going to delegate the shooting to this guy. I hope Fiennes got paid a boatload for this bullshit role. His gravitas was wasted. Whatever backstory might have existed for his character was wasted. And yet part of me thinks it's a psyop to push the rah-rah clips that never run out of ammo, the baddies always lose, shallow thinking, while in reality the baddies are doing fine. Or Fiennes, as a Brit, is playing along because MI6 or Brit intelligence, going back to the noted great game, love to play possum, to let those silly, daft Americans, those silly Yanks, think they are winning when they are really losing or being manipulated. Or if it's true, the CIA and Hollywood are often in partnership. Script approval. Was this the CIA having a laugh? Are you having a laugh? Is he having a laugh? Or was it meant as a criticism of the British and their military prowess compared to America's prowess? Or was it the noted misdirection where the Brits played the fools so they can go undetected? Bonus coverage. Some factors or considerations regarding military contractors. This is kind of being thrown in before maybe you think that whatever, they're baby killers or they're assholes or whatever. Okay. Mid-tier private contractors can make $750 a day. But with competition and the old supply demand, that can get driven down to $400, $500, $600 a day. Is Fiennes' team of this caliber? Doubtful, in sense this can be a wage for escort type duties, convoy duties that are either more static, like guard duty, a guarding of a building, or routine. So would think a snatch and grab of high value targets would be given to a different category of contractor, where the wage is much greater. Or as noted, is Fiennes' team actually regular military, for example SAS or SBS, out of uniform, or contractors but sanctioned or legitimate under legal authority for covert action? The context or consideration would be based on the funding discretion or limitations, in other words, politics, or limitations or requirements from congressional oversight, which created changes to this mission or affected the mission planning and or the support. And this is why Fiennes' team was isolated from the breakdown. And then we're told no help was imminent when they called for assistance after the ambush. Some real-world examples for consideration. I believe it was a Royal Marines small team that went to grab a couple Taliban leaders where, while transporting the Taliban back to their base, they were attacked by, I believe it was noted, 30 or 40 insurgents who were clearly pissed off and upset their leaders were snatched by this daring raid. But that forced the small team of Royal Marines out of their vehicles and into a nearby ditch where they fought back. The Royal Marines called for help from a quick reaction unit, but since they didn't coordinate their mission with the nearby conventional units at their base, the latter were not organized to react right away, and believe subsequently one of the Royal Marines was shot and or killed. In other words, even Royal Marines with specialized training can be killed by average or poorly trained troops. Then in Desert Storm, Special Forces units that were highly trained or well trained, but not necessarily in special reconnaissance, didn't analyze and evaluate the terrain or plan well enough, and hence their hide sites were soft compromised. When civilians, and I'm assuming it was like a goat herders or things like that, found their hide sites. In other words, although these are well-trained special ops operators, they can't be great at everything, which also means that within special operations, there are degrees or levels of experience and knowledge. For example, you can think Marine Recon compared to Force Recon compared to Marine Raiders, where a commenter noted that within either Force Recon or Raider, 2 units are very good and go on classified missions, but there is general knowledge what those teams are doing within the unit. But with the 3rd unit, it's very classified, where their fellow Raider or Force Recon operators have no clue. In other words, this 3rd unit are so specialized that they are specialized and classified, and what they do is hidden even to their fellow special ops, Marine Recon, Marine Raider operators or peers. I came across an article from a regular Army point of view regarding long-range patrolling and scouting, where each division might have their own operating procedures or training that in turn differ from another division's in-house school for long-range patrolling. And so this leads to uncertainty for a corps or theater commander to know what they're getting from each division's long-range recon or surveillance platoons or companies. It would make sense to have one or two Army-wide schools to instruct, but at the same time, each division has their in-house expertise or unique mission requirements where they would develop and standardize their own internal best-known methods that may not be right for another division. Then there's the push and pull regarding a theater commander's decision-making as to whether they go with a conventional in-house division or even corps-level surveillance or recon platoon, or rather a special ops unit that, as noted, may be well-trained but might lack specific skills and experience in long-range surveillance, where a unit may be dozens or even hundreds of miles into enemy territory, or rather just use private military contractors. Now, one has to manage the cost of training, the cost to provide logistical support to try and minimize dual tasking or overtasking, but also too much redundancy. It's the balance of quality versus quantity. Since, as noted, a soldier with 2, 4, 6 months of training can kill a soldier with 3, 4, 5 years of specialized training. Or even with months of advanced training, a special ops member can be found lacking when it comes to advanced knowledge and experience of a specific skill. Yet how to attain that level, since if one is doing X, then they can't be doing Y. This problem exists within the military, but regarding private contractors, there is a lack of standardization regarding equipment or methods and procedures, coupled to different degrees of access to technology and or weapons. Something like, think about it, you might be a private military contracting company with a budget of $200-300 million a year, but that doesn't mean you're going to have access to an F-35 or an F-22. So there's limitations even with them, what kind of technology or weapons they can have access to. Yet a commander may seek to use private contractors as a CYA, cover your ass, i.e. shift any blame if things go south or go pear-shaped, because of spending funding considerations to shift costs from their unit budget to more of a contract budget. For private contracting companies, their general focus is often on their corporate client's interest. For example, only to protect the facility or employees rather than the public at large. And this can cause friction in diplomacy anywhere where these private contracting companies operate. Now, here's where you might have a little empathy or sympathy for these lower level or mid-tier private contractors. A 2011 commission on wartime contracting found $31 billion to $60 billion lost to waste and fraud. There are many non-U.S. citizens used in contracting, where a report showed 32% of the fatalities were U.S. citizens and 68% of these fatalities were non-U.S. citizens. But often these are estimates only due to things like a lack of literacy with the non-U.S. contractors, a lack of documentation, or just a failure to report. The Defense Base Act casualties are supposed to be updated daily, but are often only released quarterly. And fatalities are supposed to be reported through the Labor Department Division of Longshore and Harbor Workers' Compensation for the families to file claims, but you can see how all the red tape or the lack of good documentation causes unnecessary delays and grief for the family members of these private contractors. So it's not all a bed of roses. I made reference to shooting downhill or uphill before, where equipment like a rangefinder or ACI on the scope can provide data, but where these are lacking or have malfunctioned, there is a general equation one can do manually. One can use their fist to align their tucked in thumb, so in other words, thumb pointing up to the sky but tucked in flat, or their index finger to sight at the horizon, i.e., fist the incline. 2. Then rotating their fist up or down while raising or lowering their arm to match the end of one pass, the edge of their fist, to the beginning of the next turn or pass, and count each turn or pass as 10 degrees. So like 1, 2, 3 would be 10, 20, 30. If the target is halfway across one's fist, that would count as 5 degrees. So if you went 1 turn, 2 turns, 3 turns, 30 degrees. But then if you went 1, 2, and then 3, but it was in the half, that'd be 10, 20, 25 degrees. So keep in mind the tip or numbers 115 and 1. Where in this example, 115 minus 20 degrees. So in other words, let's say we do a fist to incline and it's 1, 2. That's 20 degrees. So keep in mind the 115 and 1. Okay, so if we have 20 degrees, so in this example, 115 minus 20 degrees equals 95. Then 95 minus 1 equals 94. Okay, so as an example, if the target is 600 yards away, now take that 600 and multiply it times 94%. And that's 564 yards as the adjustment between the flat line and straight line distance. Okay, or alternately, use 100 minus 94 equals 6. Then take the 600 yards and cancel the 2 zeros. So that would be 6 times 6 or 36. And now take the 600 yards and subtract the 36. And again, you get the 564 yards. So that's a manual way to fist the incline to adjust for the flat line versus straight line distance when shooting uphill or downhill. All right, take it easy.